Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the How Yeah Hockey Podcast, where we talk all things hockey. And now that the 2022 NHL season is finally over, Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup this year. We can now go into a time known as free agency. And holy Moses, we've already got some big deals being signed, some trades and signs. And without further ado, let's just jump right into it. First one, huge news: Kevin Fiala, forward for the Minnesota Wild, was traded to the Los Angeles Kings for their first round pick in this year's draft, which is the 19th overall pick, and defenseman Brock Faber. And now, Kevin Fiala, he's only 25 years old, but he had a career year this year, playing in all 82 games this NHL season, totaling 85 points with 33 goals and 52 assists for him. Like I said, are all career numbers. And obviously, Minnesota would want her to pay this guy, but the big reason they moved on from him and sent him over to LA is because of two huge Alcatraz contracts they signed. Zach Parise and Ryan Sutter, they bought out their contracts last year, and they owed them so much money that it's going to hit their cap space for the next couple of years. So Minnesota here is trying to clear some cap space due to those two contracts they bought out over a year and a half ago. And Minnesota had a pretty good year. They finished fifth best in the NHL. A lot of guys had career years. You have Kirill Kaprizov, who won the best NHL rookie in his first year. He's got the most points for a Minnesota Wild player in franchise history. So, guys like, Ryan Sutter, Zach Parise, I think Madonna played for them for a little bit too. He's passing all those guys, and he's only a couple years into the NHL. So Minnesota's looking to be on the rise, but obviously with these dead cap space issues, I don't know if they're going to be able to re-sign everybody. Obviously, the main issue is going to be Kirill for sure. He's going to be their top priority once he needs a new contract. But Minnesota's looking on the up and up. Goaltending's been interesting here. They acquired Marc-Andre Fleury at the trade deadline and also had Cam Talbot, but goaltending couldn't get it done, and they ended up losing to the St. Louis Blues in the first round, which is unfortunate, but St. Louis would obviously go on to lose to Colorado in the second round. But, oh my goodness, the Kings are looking to have this guy for the future. They just signed him to a 7-year, $55 million contract, about $7.8 million average annual value per year on that deal, so it's a pretty hefty year. Obviously, LA's looking to get some scoring touch here. The guy like Kevin Fiala, who had a career year, 85 points with those, a lot of goals and assists. And plus, big plus for them, he played all 82 games. So you want somebody who, who's young, who's healthy, who can score. Obviously, this year was a huge up and up for him. So they're hoping they can see that he's going to work well for them over the next 7 years, because that's a pretty big contract. Obviously, the Kings roster is getting older. Dustin Brown just retired, who's a longtime captain. Andre Kopitar is getting older. You got Drew Doughty, who's still on that roster. So that roster is getting a little bit older. But obviously, they're trying to move into the age of being younger and bringing new guys. So big move for the Kings to sign him. But going to be an issue here. If he doesn't pan out, that's going to be a big loss for the Kings. Obviously, they need the scoring touch. He's probably going to be a top-line winger for sure with the amount of points he can get in his age. So he's probably going to be on the top line with the Kings next year. But if this doesn't work out, that's going to be a big loss for the Kings for sure, paying $55 million over the next 7 years for Kevin Fiala. And the Kings have been in the up and up and two. Obviously, they played the Oilers in the first round of the playoffs this year, lost in 7 games. I would have thought if Drew Doughty was healthy, probably would have beat the Oilers, but, Connor McDavid, Draisaitl are such good players, obviously, but I'm surprised to win 7 games. But Kings, they've struggled the last couple of years, but now they're starting to come on the up and up. Obviously, they're getting older, so they need to get younger players, and this is a good move in the right direction for them. And the other team we got the Tampa Bay Lightning, coming off 3 straight Stanley Cup final berths, just winning 2 in a row and losing to the eventual champion Colorado Avalanche. They just signed Nick Paul, who they picked up at the trade deadline, only played about 44 games, regular season and playoffs combined. He played all 23 games of the playoffs this year. He had about 25 points, 14 in the regular season, 9 in the playoffs. they signed him to a 7-year, $20 million $1 contract, which to me is interesting. They just picked him up at the trade deadline. That's a large term for them, but their annual value is only about $3 million, so it's not a huge hit. But kind of surprised there that they signed him that quick to a large contract, and that's what the Lightning can do. With their cap space, obviously the last couple of years they've finessed the system with using the long-term injury reserve and getting guys like that so they can add more cap space. So obviously it's a long term, but the payout's not that big. So you can probably take a $3 million hit each year. This is probably what they're thinking there. You can sign him long term for not a lot of money, and if he works out, it's a steal for you. And if he doesn't, 7-year deal, $3 million each year, probably not a big loss for the Lightning. Obviously, we'll see what they can do this year or this upcoming season if they can go to 4 straight Stanley Cups, which hasn't been done since the Islanders did it in the 80s where they won 4 straight cups. But big move for the Lightning. I mean, they extended a guy. They pick up at the trade deadline, so obviously they think he's worth it, but kind of interesting. They already signed him to a long-term deal, but like I said, they're working out the dollar amount there, so they owe him less as time goes on, if that makes sense, because, you'd rather pay that 21 over 7 years rather than say 4 or 5 years. So good move for the Lightning. I don't think it's a win or lose situation. If he goes, does well with the team, it's only a win. I don't really see any long-term disasters here just because the term and the year on that. So like I said, this is the first start of NHL Free Agency, and it's going to get crazy from here. We've already got 2 deals, 14 years in total out of 2 deals already. Huge sign and trade for the LA Kings for Kevin Fiala, and the Tampa Bay Lightning extending Nick Paul to a 7-year, $21 million contract. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next installment of the How Yeah Hockey Podcast.